Okay, so it's been a couple minutes here. I'm going to go ahead and talk about a few of the hack trick things that I do driving through the Enchanted Forest. There's a surprising amount of traffic. It's the second big dark four-door pickup truck in a row in the Enchanted Forest. It's a good question. Are we living in a simulation? Don't be an NPC, huh? I shared a Black Pilled video on my Facebook that said that. Don't be an NPC. Alright, so there's these two side streets I gotta hit off of this river road, and the first one does not have a throw, but the second one does. I'll show you here. You see my rubber band is, hang on, I'm gonna pull over. Doing this while driving is ridiculous. Get some more light on the subject here. Okay, so one of the things that I do is my rubber bands are stretched vertically across the paper. First thing that this does is it holds the bag shut better. These papers never get wet. I do not get wet paper complaints. The paper used to require, and they've still kept the tradition of a trifold and a rubber band. Well, that's what they got. It's just how I do it. Anyways, a couple of things about these rubber bands doing it this way. Number one, this is a number 33. 32 is the typical blue rubber band that you see under newspapers. 33 is just a little bit bigger. It's about the same diameter as a Sunday rubber band, the big thick ones. They call them 64s. The 32s are not quite as big in diameter. So this one stretches without stretching too hard. You can use 32s, but if the paper's too skinny, it'll actually bend the paper in half, like a triangle. It'll do this. I can't even bend this paper. It's too thick. It'll do this triangular bend like that. So anyways, the reason I slap the papers is to try and keep a straightness to this center. But yeah, I kind of form a wing with it. So anyways, in a moment you will get to see me throw one. And there's a number of different ways that I can do them. Stick throw, tomahawk, book throw, plate throws like frisbee. There's a sidearm, like a slider with it's like a frisbee with a backspin or whatever. There's basically any way that you can throw a frisbee too, but any way that you can throw a stick or knife. I've done, just for the heck of it, a few times I've done like no spin, but those aren't really accurate. The video I did yesterday throwing my phone, a little context on that funny video, because it actually got a thumbs down. I don't know who disliked that, but my phone has a ballistic case that can survive a 7-foot drop onto a concrete floor and bounce. I threw it onto a lawn about 35 feet from where I was standing, and the grass was very long, so there was no direct impact, and I knew that would be the case. And lastly, because I've been doing newspapers for as long as I have, this nice little cabin. Because I've been doing newspapers for as long as I have a nice technique of, you can put a lot of force behind the throw, and you can inject that force into the spin of the paper. Oh my gosh. People don't pick their papers out of their box, and it gets full, and it becomes difficult to stick it in. And these people have freaking spiders on their box all the time. Ugh. So anyways, you can put the force of the throw, you get it becomes mental after a while. You know, you're subliminally, automatically calculating trajectory. It's an arc. There's the angle of the throw, the spin of the paper as it flies along the trajectory. There's sometimes are changes in behavior based on the aerodynamics of the paper. Honestly, the paper is different every day. There's certain motifs or formats or whatever that they run, but there's certain types of ads that you know it's going to be this type of throw for the day because that's how the paper behaves. I've had some really interesting instances of these papers losing their horizontal spin in favor of what I would call like a pickle spin. They're spinning along the vertical axis instead of the vertical axis spinning along the center point of gravity. But when they do that, the paper continues to follow the same trajectory. It's pretty cool. So wherever I was throwing it to is still where it goes, but it's like it ran out of spin and really any kind of oomph a few feet short, and then it flutters the rest of the way. Unfortunately, that's usually on walk routes that happens, and you will not see that happen on this one. And it's an accidental thing. It's not like something I'd be like, oh, watch me do the flutter. Like, I don't know how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to the next side road off the river road, and the first one that I do will be a throw. And we'll see how these behave. So, yeah, it's all about conservation of momentum. There is a trajectory. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. All of the Newtonian laws apply. But you can kind of hack them because, like, for example, the way that I use my rubber bands on the paper, the rubber band pulls inward toward the center of the paper. And if you know anything about parkour or ice skating, anything that figure skating or whatever that they do, like the pinwheels and lutzes and things, that there is, you can use your own mass and redistribute redistribute the mass in such a way that your center of gravity changes temporarily, and in doing so you can do some pretty cool acrobatic maneuvers. That's, it's the same kind of principles the martial artists use, the trickery, as it were. I mean, it's not really trickery to be able to jump really high if you're good at jumping, and you find things to, but there's boosts like, how did Michael Jordan pivot? It's things like that. The newspaper has the capability to do the same thing because of this rubber band on the center of it. Another interesting thing I've noticed, although this is purely anecdotal and an unscientific note, I juggle. I've known how to juggle since I was about 15, almost 40, so it's been, 25 years of occasional practice. I'm still pretty good. Here it is, the newspaper. I'm going to aim for the center right underneath the little Cubs sign. Ooh, curve to the left. Anyways, that newspaper is very light, and with the number 32 rubber bands, or with the number 16s, which a lot of people use, there's those little tiny skinny blue ones. I don't know if you've ever seen the little skinny number 16s. They're almost completely useless. If I had done the way that they normally do them, what it would do is you would fold this down to here, and you would put the rubber band around here where my finger is to hold it in place. And these papers are so thin that doesn't hold it in, and if you were to throw it like this or like this with the band right here, the chances are the mass of the newspaper would cause the rubber band to slide, or the paper to come out of the flap is not held down the same way as when I do it vertically. So basically, once I learned this trick and started doing this vertically, it's been about 3.5 years since I did it. I have not had a single newspaper explode out of the bag while I'm throwing it, and I've not had any issues with the papers coming out or getting wet or anything. Oh, that's right, these are weekend only on the other paper. So anyways, that's the only throw on this road. But yeah, there's a conservation of momentum that occurs, pulling inward on the thing. It's just a slight pull, and that slight pull of force they stopped. I just didn't mark the box. That conservation pole gives it a little bit more spin. These things are so stable in flight. I can get a good 40 to 50 foot before it even starts to flutter. And, you know, if you have a nice arc and you know that it's going to curve, like now, if I was doing a walk route, for instance, the number of papers thrown is drastically more. I've got like a total of 11 thrown papers from a car, plus a couple, this other chunky bundle from there's 8 papers in one big Sunday bag for the nursing home. But, and I know this is like, on a side note, this is like, oh yeah, look at this guy with his, doing this one route, and yeah, man, I've been on this for a couple months, and I'm super familiar with this area now, but I gotta tell you, there is about 10 other motor routes that they have that they could be like, hey man, here's your directional so you know who the customers are. And I would be driving the route because I already know the way through every single one of them, and I'll still remember all the houses, all the details, who likes what thrown where, without having to check the directional. I just need to make sure that I know who's a vacation and who's still a customer. And if the previous carrier, or if I'm just doing a day off for a carrier, and they've got their stickers updated so that there's a code to these reflective newspaper stickers indicating, you know, weekend only, Sunday only, daily carrier, or daily customer, whether it's the Hawkeye or the Des Moines Register. And if those stickers are all updated, as well as the red stickers for, you know, the vacations and stops, if that's updated, like I said, there's 10 or 15 routes on this paper out in the motors that I could just go out and do without needing a directional. So anyways, on the walk routes, there are they're somewhere between, you know, it depends on the size of the route and the area. They could be anywhere from 25 to 100 papers. And I've done up to 300 papers a night. And with the exception of the time that I did a small town with 600, well, they said 600, but it turned out to be like 583 or something. Almost 600 doorsteps that they wanted this free shopper thing delivered to. And so I did about 350 or 400 the first night, and other couple hundred the next night. I think it was about 300 and 300 anyway, but roundabouts 300 is my max. I can deliver on vehicle / foot, you know, in and out the truck or car. On a walk route, could do about 100 papers an hour. So when you're doing that many papers, well over half of them are thrown. There's, you know, toss on porch, doesn't have a specific, you know, put between a screen door or inside the noted newspaper box or on the hooks underneath of the mailbox kind of thing. There's a lot of, you know, little details. A lot of them are just, they get the paper, they want it on their porch, so you get it in front of the door. And so over these years, I've developed a lot of techniques of, you know, putting the force into the throw, but so that the spin is fierce enough that it stabilizes perfectly, but it runs out of spin and just gently soft lands. So coming back to the reason I'm describing all of this, when I did the phone throwing video, like I said, I have an extremely strong phone case, and I have the ability to throw so that it soft lands, and I threw it onto a soft surface, so there was no actual risk to my phone. But anyways, yeah, with the, you know, figuring, you know, you learn as the night goes what kind of throws the paper is going to be, depending on, you know, how many ads, how thick, how heavy. Is it bendy? Is it flappy? Is it something that's, you know, so big that it actually, you almost can't throw it frisbee style because you'll hurt yourself after a while, get tennis elbow. But you know, they will all tend to, you know, you throw it with the same hand in the same way every time. You'll start to notice the pattern of how much they pull to one side or the other. The wind is blowing a certain direction, so you correct for it. So if I had a walk route with 100 papers and, you know, 45 of those were throws, after about 10 papers, I would stop missing altogether. And I wouldn't necessarily miss all 10 of the first ones either. It would just mean that by that 10th paper's time, I would not be missing a single throw. I've had some interesting times where the horizontal frisbee style flight of the newspaper intersects the flight path intersects a column after I throw it. I'm like, oh crap.
and like there's like a porch column, but because of the way that the paper is spinning, the direction of it is correct so that it kind of does like a roll around the pole without really ceasing its spin, and from an edge-on angle almost looks like it saw blades through, but it doesn't cut. It's kind of cool. Can't really see the horizon. It's just barely got the faintest little tinge of light. There's a coal train on the left blocking the river view. Get up to the top of the hill here, I'll show you this coal plant. There's a massive coal staging facility with a mountain. So you can't really see it here, but there's I'm passing a little one-room schoolhouse built out of logs called Galland. This is supposedly the very first one-room schoolhouse built in the state of Iowa, before it was actually a state. They kind of first made their way across the river. So, that'll be the next thing up, and then I'll end this video. These guys got to redeliver, and I don't seem to recall having forgotten to deliver. I didn't come up short, so I think somebody stole their newspaper after I delivered it. I did see somebody on the road at that time. Every time I see people on the road, I end up with a complaint that somebody stole my paper. And you recall in the previous video, I was, or maybe it was this one, mentioning the suspicious coincidence of trucks in the Enchanted Forest. So, okay, we're coming up on this. There's a deer. Okay, I bet you can't see that. They're actually pouring. Right now, what you're seeing is a large conveyor with the diagonal line moving up. The bright light at the top is a spout that is dumping a mountain of coal, and the other small bright light underneath of it is a bulldozer. What I was trying to show before, and it was not bright enough to see, is that there is a 4-story tall mountain of coal. It's pretty crazy. So anyways, I'll end that segment with that. Yeah, unfortunately, don't really have a lot of good throws to show on this route, but I don't know, maybe sometime I'll do a demonstration video. I'll put it on a live stream and start doing some throws or something. Get some different sizes and types of papers and some targets or something. But yeah, that'll be the end of this segment.